Hmm. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on chapter 45 in terms of Revelation. And yet again, I am using the Holy Bible, the King James Bible, for reference because today we are on Surah Taha, which in terms of in terms of arrangement is chapter 20, but in terms of revelation is chapter 45. And it's a long one, so today I'll do one half and maybe the other half next week, or two, or the first third and the other thirds. But the third today is a very important third for me, or section, shall I say, because it is the story of Moses. And as I've mentioned before, in this series that I do, that Moses is one of my favorite people to ever live. Um, and it Surah Taha starts with a few verses and then it dives into the story of Moses for 90 verses or so. And it talks about the burning bush and the Pharaoh and taking a man and turning the man into a prophet. Um, the same story, albeit with variation, is found in the second book of the Bible called Exodus. And it is the story of Moses. So there's Genesis, then there's Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and so forth. Chapter 3 in Exodus talks about the same thing. So before I take a deep dive into the Quran, I'm going to preface it with the Bible. I will read from Exodus chapter 3, verse 1 till verse 15. And then I'm going to read the same thing in the Quran and then its developments thereafter. So, without further ado, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father in law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert. And he came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Any curious person would do the same. That you imagine you're walking now. See, because I love Moses, I've seen every televised or media-related depiction of him. So I've seen the Prince of Egypt maybe 50 times. I've seen Ten Commandments many, many times, and I've seen Exodus with Christian Bale, and I've seen many other uh, portrayals, and it's always the same that he's looking after his sheep, and suddenly he sees the burning bush, and the bush always entices him. Where Moses goes and says, "What is that? Why isn't it burning?" And Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt." And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called in unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here am I." So this is really well shown in Exodus when it says, "Moshe," and his eyes open up. But it also in Prince of Egypt, the sound goes, "Moses." And what's interesting that they did in Prince of Egypt, which is how I always think about the sound of God, is that the person communicating with God is listening to his own voice, but through with God's words coming. So Val Kilmer did the voice of Moses in Prince of Egypt, and the voice of God is also Val Kilmer because God speaks to him in the voice he best understands. I love that concept. And he said, "Moses, Moses," and he said, "Here am I." And he said, "Draw not nigh hither. Put off your shoes from off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground." I've seen this in so many. It's awe-inspiring, and it gives me goosebumps every time I see it. Every time I see this scene, because God is telling Moses, God, the creator of the whole universe, multiverses, everything, is saying, "Take off your shoes, because the place where you stand is holy ground." God could snap his fingers and transport Moses somewhere else. He could snap his fingers and the shoes come off. He could snap his fingers and make it unholy ground. It is important for Moses to take his shoes off. And I'll tell you why. In Turkey, whenever we are invited to somebody's house, it's common practice that everyone takes their shoes off, barring some ladies who wear heels, which are part of their ensemble. Most, if not all, people take their shoes off at the door, and you leave them outside and you enter, and they give you home slippers. It is a sign of respect. You go to Japan, it's the same thing. You go to a temple in India, it's the same thing. You go to a mosque, it's the same thing. Taking your shoes off, taking your hat off, taking your coat, your scarf, taking things off, and out of respect, coming towards something is a sign of reverence, is a sign of respect, and it shows that you value the interaction. So God telling Moses to do this rather than doing it himself is a process of putting Moses into a mode of thought. And the mode of thought is not necessarily fear only. The mode of thought is worship, reverence, respect. So Moses is there, he's seeing a fire burning, and then he hears his name and he says, yeah, here I am. And the sound says, well, before we can continue, why don't you take your shoes off? Because we're in a holy space, and let's build the correct conditions for this conversation. What's interesting is that Moses hears his name from God. That's how special he is. It's God speaking to Moses. With Muhammad, peace be upon him, it was the angel Gabriel. And the first words Muhammad heard were read. Read in the name of thy Lord who has created you. Oh, remember me from last year when I started covering this series. Read as the word that Muhammad heard. And Moses heard his own name. Read is what Muhammad heard from Gabriel, the prophet. The angel Gabriel. Moses is the word that Moses heard from God himself. So it tells you how important Moses is, but it also tells you that Muhammad was being opened up into something large, because there was Adam, there was Noah, there was Abraham, there was Moses, there was Jesus, and there was Muhammad. And there were a few other great men, but in Islam we trace this lineage from some very important people. So Muhammad was being opened up through Gabriel and built up to go see God, which is the Miraj and the Isra, and this whole story of Muhammad going and ascending all levels and coming face to face with God and seeing God. This is very, very important, because God hasn't spoken to most of the messengers that we know, but these are the select few that God has spoken to. So it's important to recognize that. And when the Lord saw that I've done that part. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. I would be too. As much as I love God, as much as I would kill to see God, to be in his presence where I'm fully aware that this is God. Right now, we are all in God's presence all the time, but we lack that level of awareness. I do. God may be around me right now, but I don't realize it because I'm so locked in my brain, in my mind. So we might even have that. I'd love to do that, but I know I'd be afraid, because this is the Lord of all that exists, and I'm this little thing. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. It's true. Watch all the depictions of Egypt at that time. It was true. There was a great power asymmetry. There was a great disparity. Come now, therefore, I will send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So the children of Israel is another word for children of Jacob, as we covered earlier. But see, bring forth my people out of Egypt. And Moses said to God, who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? This is so beautifully shown in Prince of Egypt and in Ten Commandments, where Charlton Heston goes, Lord, who am I that I should do? It's so beautifully done. And in Exodus with Christian Bale, they've played around with the dialogue a bit. They've changed the dialogue, but the music, and it starts swinging into a rhythmic, I think, bass music, and you start losing yourself into it. So powerfully done. And he said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token unto you that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God upon the mountain. And we know the story of Moses in the mountain. We'll cover that at a later date, or we might cover that today. Yeah, we'll cover that today through the Quran. And he said, and Moses said to God, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say unto them? Imagine being in that situation. It always baffles me, because when I think of Muhammad being in the cave alone, age 40, just 5 years older than me, age 40, Muhammad alone in the cave, in the dark, trying to reconcile the thoughts in his head, trying to find answers to questions. And suddenly he hears a sound, read, and the angel hugs him and he's enlightened. Now there's Moses, and Moses is facing the burning bush. Now Moses is there, and he's not tongue-tied. He's open. He's saying, why would they listen to me? A, who am I that they would listen to me? And two, okay, if I go to them, what name will I tell them? It's so interesting that he sees it that way. And then God says, one of the greatest lines that I've ever read in anything ever written. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt you say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Before we start the Quran, I want to talk a bit about the term, I am that I am, because I can't pronounce it in Hebrew. But there are disambiguations of this. It can also be, I will become what I choose to become. I am what I am. I will be what I will be. I create whatever I create. I am the existing one. So there are many variations of this. But it's very interesting because I was reading about this. And in Hinduism, we have similar statements from Brahma and from the Trimurti and from the great deities in Hinduism. And I read, this is related by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. I am that I am is one of the greatest ways to say it, because it's an abstraction in the mind of the stateless state, of the absolute or the supreme reality called Parabrahman. It is pure awareness prior to thoughts, free from perceptions, associations, memories. Parabrahman is often considered to be a cognate term for the supreme being in Hinduism. I'm reading this from Wikipedia, but you can also find it in so many accounts. It's an incredibly powerful thing to say. Let there be light, Kun fayakun, which means God said and it was done, and then I am that I am. These are some things. See, it's incredible how God speaks. The the verses or the phrases that we have of God, each one of them is so powerful. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Taha. These are letters we don't know the meaning of, but God alone knows. We have not sent down the Quran unto you, O Muhammad, to cause you distress, but only as a reminder to those who fear God, a revelation from Him who has created the earth and high heavens. The most gracious rose over Istawa, the mighty throne, in a manner that suits His Majesty. Yep. To Him belongs all that is in the heavens and all that is on the earth and all that is between them and all that is under the soil. And if you, O Muhammad, speak the invocation aloud, then verily He knows the secret and that which is yet more hidden. Allah, or God, La ilaha illahu, which means none has the right to be worshipped but He. To Him belongs the best names. And here we go. And has there come to you the story of Moses, or Musa as we say? When he saw a fire, he said to his family, Wait, verily I have seen a fire. Perhaps I can bring you some burning brand therefrom, or find some guidance at the fire. And when he came to the fire, he was called by name, O Moses, or O Musa, or Moshe. Verily I am your Lord, so take off your shoes. You are in the sacred valley, Tuwa. Word for word, isn't it? And I have chosen you, so listen to that which will be revealed to you. Verily I am God. La ilaha illa ana. None has the right to be worshipped but I. So worship me and perform as-salat, which means prayer, for my remembrance. Verily the hour is coming, and I am almost hiding it, that every person may be rewarded for that which he strives. Therefore let not the one who believes not therein, which means on the day of resurrection, paradise, reckoning, and so forth, but following his own lust, divert you therefrom, lest you perish. And what is that in your right hand, O Moses? He said, This is my stick, whereon I lean, and wherewith I beat down branches for my sheep, and wherein I find other uses. God said, Cast it down, O Moses. He cast it down, and behold, it was a snake, moving quickly. God said, Grasp it and fear not, we shall return it to its former state. The being, the entity who created the whole universe, that's what all believers believe. Of course, he can change a stick into a snake. I don't even doubt that for a second. And press your right hand to your left side. It will come forth white and shining without any disease as another sign, that we may show you some of our greatest signs. Moses was given a lot of miracles. Moses is a special one. I wish I could have met him. I'm in absolute awe of him. Go to Pharaoh. Verily he has transgressed all bounds in disbelief and disobedience, and has behaved as an arrogant and as a tyrant. Moses said, O my Lord, open for me my chest, which means grant me self-confidence, contentment, and boldness, and ease my task for me, and loose the knot, the defect from my tongue, which means remove the incorrectness from my speech. This incorrectness was because Moses had swallowed fire or coal when he was an infant, that they may understand my speech, and appoint for me a helper from my family, Aaron my brother. Increase my strength with him, and let him share my task of conveying God's message in prophethood, that we may glorify you much and remember you much. Verily, you are ever a well-seer of us. This message of, O my Lord, open for me my chest and ease my task and loose the knot from my tongue. This is Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. This is very prevalent in between 2 billion Muslims in the world, because I'm a public speaker. Every time I speak publicly and I speak to my mother, she reminds me to say this. She reminds me of reciting this. She says, before you go, do this. And I said, yes, of course, yes. And I do it every single time, because I'm seeking to God that my chest is open and my tongue is open, and so they may understand me, and that I'm clear. And it's one of very important invocations that we have from Moses. God said, "You are granted your request, O Moses, and indeed we conferred a favor on you another time." This is before. So now Moses is being taken into a flashback. Isn't it wonderful? Telling Muhammad the story of Moses, and in the story of Moses, there's a flashback. This is how the 1001 Nights is also written. This is a very interesting trope in Middle Eastern literature. A story within a story within a story. It's very interesting. We conferred a favor on you another time when we inspired your mother with that which we inspired, saying, "Put him, the child, into the tabut, a box or a case or a chest, and put it into the river Nile. Then the river shall cast it up on the bank. And there an enemy of mine and an enemy of his shall take him. And I endued you with love from me in order that you may be brought up under my eye." It's such an epic story. All the children must be killed. Not this one. This one's going to be in a trunk and is going to find its way through the river Nile to the house of the Pharaoh. And he's going to grow under the guidance of the Pharaoh, under the rule of the Pharaoh in his home. And then later he is going to come and challenge it himself. When your sister went and said, "Shall I show you one who will nurse him?" So we restored you to your mother, that she might cool her eyes and she should not grieve. Then you did kill a man, but we saved you from great distress and tried you with a heavy trial. Then you stayed a number of years with the people of Midian. Then you came here according to the fixed term which I ordained for you, O Moses. Such a long tale. And now when I do get to Exodus, which is part of the Torah, because I'll do the Old Testament, then the New Testament, I will dive into this story in a lot of detail. "And I have chosen you for myself. Go you and your brother with my ayat," which is proofs, evidences, verses, lessons, "and do not you both slacken and become weak in my remembrance. Go both of you to Pharaoh. Verily, he has transgressed all bounds in disbelief and disobedience and behaved as an arrogant and as a tyrant. And speak to him mildly, perhaps he may accept admonition or fear of God. They say, Our Lord, verily we fear lest he should hasten to punish us, or lest he should transgress all bounds against us. And God said, Fear not, verily I am with you both, hearing and seeing. So go you both to him and say, Verily we are messengers of your Lord. So let the children of Israel go with us and torment them not. Indeed, we have come with a sign from your Lord, and peace will be given. Peace will be upon him who follows the guidance. Isn't it interesting? In the Old Testament, it's the same story, but it's told slightly differently and it's spread over time. Here, it's patches and snippets, and whoever wants to study it more can study it more. Truly, it has been revealed to us that the torment will be for him who denies, which means does not believe in the oneness of God and in his messengers, and turns away from the truth and obedience of God. Pharaoh said, Who then, O Moses, is the Lord of you two? Amazing storytelling. So now Moses is being told about the past, and now Moses is facing Pharaoh, and now that story is being relayed to Muhammad. This is wonderful storytelling devices because it keeps the reader engaged. And Moses responded, Our Lord is he who gave to each thing its form and nature, then guided it aright. Pharaoh said, What about the generations of old? Well, Pharaoh, or Ramesses, as we say, was he knew Moses. They were raised together. So there's a clear conversation happening between them. It wasn't, off to the dungeons with you, off with his head. No, there was a conversation because they have a history together. Moses said, The knowledge thereof is with my Lord in a record. My Lord neither errs nor he forgets. That's true. That's what we believe. Ever seeing, ever knowing, ever present. Who has made earth for you like a bed spread out, and has opened roads for you therein, and has sent down water from the sky, and we have brought forth with it various kinds of vegetation. Eat and pasture your cattle. Verily, in this are ayat for men of understanding. This is true. So this is Moses showing to Pharaoh, because nobody wants a war. There's no requirement of go and kill everyone. There's always, like God said, approach him mildly so he might listen to you and he might be open to the further dialogue. Thereof the earth we created you, and into it we shall return you, and from it we shall bring you out once again. This is the cycle of man. And indeed we showed him, Pharaoh, all our ayat, signs and evidences, but he denied and refused. Pharaoh said, have you come to drive us out of our land with your magic, O Moses? Then verily we can produce magic the like thereof. So appoint a meeting between us and you, which neither we nor you shall fail to keep, an open place where both shall have a just and equal chance, and beholders could witness the competition. So this is the story about the snakes and about the competition, and it became that. It would be the same today. We think we have developed so far along. We really haven't. If somebody comes up with a thought or an idea, the existing scholars, the thinkers of our time, the scientists, the world leaders, the politicians would say, okay, let's face off in a debate stage. Let's face off. Show us yours and we'll show you ours. It's still the same thing. Human beings rarely evolve. We've improved our living conditions, but as human beings, we haven't really changed that much. Moses said, your appointed meeting is the day of the festival, and let the people assemble when the sun has risen forenoon. So Pharaoh withdrew, devised his plot, and then came back. Moses said to them, woe unto you, invent not a lie against God, lest he should destroy you completely by a torment. And surely he who invents a lie against God will fail miserably. Then they debated one with another what they must do, and they kept their talk secret. They said, verily there are two magicians. The object is to drive you out from your land with magic, and to take you away from your superior way, overcome your chiefs and nobles. So it's just a battle of the magicians. So devise your plot and then assemble in line, and whoever overcomes this day will be indeed successful. They said, O Moses. So we know this. I'm just reading it through. We've seen this in so many movies. O Moses, either you throw first, or we be the first to throw. Moses said, nay, throw you first. Then behold, the ropes and their sticks by their magic appeared to him as though they moved fast. So Moses conceived fear in himself. God said, fear not, surely you will have the upper hand. So they made ropes, and the ropes became snakes, and it's just a magic trick. And throw that which is in your right hand, which was his staff, and it will swallow up that which they have made. That which they have made is only a magician's trick, and the magician will never be successful to whatever amount of skill he may attain. So the magicians fell down prostrate. They said, we believe in the Lord of Aaron and Moses. Now the biblical account, or the account that we've seen in movies, is different because they're not so easily convinced. But in the Quran, maybe it's summarizing it, or maybe it's trying to convey a larger point. Pharaoh said, believe you in him, Moses, before I give you permission. Verily he is your chief who has taught you magic. So I will surely cut off your hands and feet on opposite sides, and I will surely crucify you on the trunks of date palms. And you shall surely know which of us, I, Pharaoh, or the Lord of Moses, can give the severe and more lasting torment. So when human beings can't win through love, or through information or knowledge, or through adding value, we punish. That's human nature. We punish, we push, we charge. So that's what Pharaoh was doing. They said, we prefer you not over what have come to us of the clear signs, and to him who created us. So decree whatever you desire to decree, for you can only decree this life of the world. Verily we have believed in our Lord, that he may forgive us our faults, and the magic to which you did compel us. And God is better as regards reward in comparison to your reward, they say to Pharaoh, and more lasting as regards punishment in comparison to your punishment. That's true. The Lord, the creator of the whole universe, can exact more punishments and give more rewards than a Pharaoh, no matter how great he is. But the ego is something that we don't openly see today, at least. Maybe you might see it in tyrants and dictators, or great warrior kings like Alexander or Genghis Khan, or maybe Hitler, who might believe that, oh, I am the center and I can do this. We don't see that anymore. And I wonder whether that thought process exists privately or it has completely disappeared. Verily, whoever comes to his Lord as a mujrim, which means a criminal, polytheist, sinner, disbeliever, then surely for him is hell, wherein he will neither die nor live. But whoever comes to him as a believer in the oneness of God and has done righteous good deeds, for such are the higher ranks in the hereafter. Adn, Eden, paradise, everlasting gardens under which rivers flow, wherein they will abide forever. And such is the reward of those who purify themselves, by abstaining from all kinds of sins and evil deeds, which God has forbidden, and by doing all that God has ordained. Have you noticed? Eden, Adn, is a name that we're seeing more and more in the last few chapters. It's coming again and again. It's becoming part of the discourse. And indeed, we revealed to Moses, saying, travel by night with Ibadi, which means my slaves, and strike a dry path for them in the sea, fearing neither to be overtaken by the Pharaoh, nor being afraid of drowning in the sea. This is discussed more in the Old Testament, and I will discuss it in detail, but this is one of my most favorite events to take place in the entire history of mankind, where Moses parted the Red Sea. You create a dry path in the sea, and you strike it. And in Prince of Egypt, it says, with this staff you shall do my wonders. And it's such a powerful scene. Every time I see it, it's emotional for me, because I would have loved to have met Moses and been there. Then Pharaoh pursued them with his hosts, but the sea water completely overwhelmed them and covered them up. And Pharaoh led his people astray, and he did not guide them. O children of Israel, we delivered you from your enemy, and we made a covenant with you on the right side of the mount. And we sent down to you al-manna and quail. Al-manna is manna salva. It was this great diet or food that satisfied everything, saying, eat of the tayyibat, which means the good lawful things wherewith we have provided you, and commit no transgression or oppression therein, lest my anger should justly descend on you. And he on whom my anger descends, he is indeed perished. So when it says, we made a covenant with you on the right side of the mount, that is the 10 Commandments, Mount Sinai, and this is between Moses and God, and Moses brought back the commandments. And verily I am indeed forgiving to him who repents, believes in my oneness, and associates none in worship with me, and does righteous good deeds, and then remains constant in doing them till his death. And what made you hasten from your people, O Moses? He said, they are close on my footsteps, and I hasten to you, O my Lord, that you might be pleased. God said, verily, we have tried your people in your absence, and As-Samiri has led them astray. So Samiri is one of the leaders who took shape, or who came to the forefront after Moses went to the mountain. And he started convincing people of creating a calf made of gold and worshipping that calf. This man has just delivered you from your enemy, saved you, parted the Red Sea in front of you. And the first chance you get, you construct an animal which you worship. It's very interesting how resilient but also stubborn human nature is. After seeing all of that, path dependence plays its role. Because if you've been worshipping idols from before, you would easily go back to it. And if you haven't, you'd find the easiest way to fulfill that void. Then Moses returned to his people in a state of anger and sorrow. He said, "O my people, did not your Lord promise you a fair promise? Did then the promise seem to you long in coming, or did you desire that wrath should descend from your Lord unto you, that you broke your promise to me by disbelieving in God and worshipping the calf?" They said, "We broke not the promise to you of our own will, but we were made to carry the weight of the ornaments of the Pharaoh." People and then we cast them into the fire, and that was what a summary suggested. So summary, there's always evil, there will always be evil. The world can't exist without evil. We can't remove evil. Utopias cannot exist, dystopias cannot exist. Where there is a prevalence of evil, there will always be a glimmer of good, and where there's a prevalence of good, there will always be a glimmer of evil. That is the state of affairs all the time, everywhere, always. And that is why Samri is necessary. Satan is necessary to remind us, to tempt us, so that we may stay on the path. He has to come and move us, and we resist it. Then he took out of the fire for them a statue of a calf, which seemed too low. They said, "This is your Ilah, God, and the Ilah, God of Moses, but he, Moses, has forgotten his God." Beautifully done, Samri. Take the existing narrative, twist it slightly, and sell it again to the people, like we do today. Nothing has changed. This story is over 3,000 years old. Sorry, am I saying 3,000? Maybe 5,000 years old. It's a long, long time ago. But it's still the same. Take what exists, repackage it, sell it again. Did they not see that it could not return them a word for answer, like any idol, and that it had no power either to harm them or to do them good? And Aaron indeed had said to them beforehand, "O my people, you are being tried in this, and verily your Lord is the most gracious, so follow me and obey my order." They said, "We will not stop worshipping it, the calf, until Moses returns to us." Aaron didn't have the personality. Aaron may have been a lovely person, a lovely prophet, but he didn't have the personality that Moses did. Moses had a stronger personality. Moses said, "O Aaron, what prevented you when you saw them going astray? That you followed me not according to my advice to you? Have you then disobeyed my order?" And Aaron said, "O son of my mother, seize me not by my beard nor by my head. Verily, I feared lest you should say, you have caused a division among the children of Israel, and you have not respected my word." Moses said, "And what is the matter with you, O Samari? i.e., why did you do so?" And Samari said, "I saw what they saw not. So I took a handful of dust from the hoof print of the messenger, Gabriel's horse, and threw it into the fire in which were put the ornaments of Pharaoh's people, or into the calf. Thus my inner self suggested to me." Your inner self was guided by Satan, Samari. Moses said, "Then go away, and verily your punishment in this life will be that you will say, 'Touch me not.' You will live alone, exiled away from mankind, and verily for a future torment you have a promise that will not fail. And look at your Ilah, God, to which you have been devoted. We will certainly burn it and scatter its particles in the sea. Your Ilah, your God, is only God, the one. La ilaha illahu, and none has the right to be worshipped but he. He has full knowledge of all things. Thus we relate to you, O Muhammad, some information of what happened before. And indeed we have given you from us a reminder," which is this Quran. I have taken too long today, I understand that, but this story is incredibly important. There's the story of Moses. Moses is one of the most important human beings to ever walk the earth, and one of my most beloved people. I'm fully in love with his story, his personality, and how he lived his life. So thank you for joining me today, and we will continue this next week, because it's a very long chapter. It's around 135, I'd say. So it's a long, long chapter, and we covered this story of Moses, and next week it would be the story of Adam. So Surah Taha, which is in arrangement chapter number 20. It's a fine, fine chapter. So please take your time and take a gander if you have time. Have a wonderful Friday, a wonderful weekend, and I shall see you